Welcome back, 7:45 right now. If you are getting ready to book that summer vacation, there are some things you should know. I mean, it's one of those things where you know it's going to be a little stressful. You know it's going to be crowded because it's summer, and a lot of people like to travel in the summer. But just prepare yourself. Have the right mindset going into it. Aviation expert Steve Cowell, you deal with so many issues when it comes to aviation. Obviously, you're a pilot as well. So you see both sides of it. And from a traveler perspective, if there's one thing going into it that people maybe should readjust, what would it be?
Well, first and foremost, there's a new initiative out by a lot of carriers for meals on board. You should remember that you're buying an airline ticket. You're not buying a ticket to a restaurant.
Right.
You're buying an airline ticket.
Right. So don't expect gourmet. I mean, it is what it is. You're really, frankly, lucky to be getting a meal at all. I hate to say that, but it's true, right?
Well, it's absolutely true. It's just another method that the airlines are using to try to lure passengers in. And the other thing, too, speaking of meals, you don't want to buy the sizzle and not the steak, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, in other words, what I'm talking about here is you've got airlines out there that are advertising these very low, minuscule fares.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine if you're walking on board an airplane and not carrying anything.
Right.
So do your research. Really check and see, you know, who you're going to be paying those fees to, because by the time you add up all those fees,
For sure.
you're going to be paying much more than maybe a discounted fare that's inclusive of baggage on another airline.
Well, what's interesting, you know, I have 3 kids and my wife, and we all travel together. And so for us, it works out well because we can buy all those tickets and then really only have to check 1 or 2 bags. But if you're by yourself and you have to check a bag, all of a sudden, like you said, the price of the ticket is just as bad, if not more expensive than flying someone else. And when it comes to TSA, you know, just yesterday we had one of our reporters out at the airport. I saw how crowded it was. You know, it's summertime travel. This is one of the busiest times of the year.
Well, it's extremely crowded.
Yeah.
And there's little tricks you can do to get through the TSA very quickly if you don't have clear or TSA pre-check or something like that. You want to basically be organized beforehand.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you've got your ID. Make sure you've got your boarding pass out. Know that every piece of metal in your pocket is going to have to be taken out.
Right.
So dump everything out, shove it in your briefcase that's already going to be going through. You know you're going to be taking off your shoes. Have everything ready before you get right up to the front of that TSA line. In other words, we've all been aggravated by that guy that's now standing there and completely undressing.
Hey, I'm that guy. Stop. No, I know what you're saying. You're like, come on, you didn't think about this beforehand? You didn't know you were going through security? You had to wear 5 layers? Really? That had to happen?
Yep.
But it is about thinking ahead of time. And then once you get on the plane, I mean, air travel has changed a lot. We're getting less room in the seats. All the planes are full. I remember 15 years ago flying, and half the plane was empty. That doesn't seem to happen as much anymore.
No, it doesn't. What the airlines did was they adjusted capacity. In other words, we cut down the frequency of the flights going from point A to point B. In addition, we cut down the airline fleets themselves. There's a lot of planes sitting out in the desert that were working perfectly, but you know, the airlines have just adjusted, and it's basically driving increased profitability for them. Now, one thing
it's efficiency.
It's efficiency. One thing you should note, really, when you're traveling with a family, between those airlines that don't give assigned seating and those that do, you might want to consider those that don't give assigned seating, simply because they're more apt to offer pre-boarding for your family, so you don't have to worry about not being seated all together.
Southwest. Families get to board at the front of the B block every single time. I know, because I love that. Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm flying international on Saturday.
Okay.
Long haul flight. What's your pro tip for a long haul flight?
All I could say is bring something to read. Don't count on your computer being able to last the entire flight. But just sit back and relax. And during the flight, you need to get up and move around because sitting too long really can give a negative effect to your body. They encourage pilots to stand up, do some sort of you know, brief exercises, even in the cockpits on long-haul flights, and they do have relief pilots. So you should do the same.
So if you're flying to Italy and you see some weird dude doing calisthenics in the aisle, that's your local weatherman, everybody.
Doing squat thrusts in the
Steve,
aisle.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great information, super
You bet.
helpful for anyone traveling. Let's go over to Greg now with your weather. Any more questions, Greg?
I'm just wondering if you brought in those little wings that we can put on now. Lower 60.